What is up, guys? Welcome to this episode of the Budding Watch Enthusiast. Here on this channel, I review and discuss wristwatches from the perspective of someone who's not been collecting for very long. If you like what you see here, please hit the red subscribe button down below and ring the bell icon so you always see new episodes that I post. Today, we are doing a full review of the Roebuck watch company Diviso. This is a watch I've had now for about 2 weeks. First saw this watch at the recent District Time Festival. You may have seen the unboxing that I did on Instagram. And so now we're ready to talk about this very unique looking kind of dress watch, but also kind of definitely leans into the sports side of things in a few ways. And we'll get into that as we discuss during this review. So let's dig right in with this case that this watch comes seated in. It is made of 316L stainless steel. The finishing is going to be predominantly brushed. You see that on the top of the lugs here that come down. You see it on the broad side of the case, on the back of the case as well. But the very first thing that caught my eye when I saw this watch for the first time was this framed side, basically, that is polished. And you also see polishing on the side of the bezel there as well. If we flip the watch around, you do see the same kind of case frame on the other side. I know normally we're accustomed to seeing, polished beveled edges that just run along the side. You don't often see that also extend down the end of the lugs as well. So a very, very unique look and a, huge contrast to the finish, the very satinized finish that you see coming through the middle of the watch here. Now, if we flip it over here on the case back, we do see this more circular pattern with much heavier brush strokes, and you kind of see the heavier brush strokes on the top of the watch as well, though it's a little bit hard to catch with my overhead lights hitting it. But you can see it a little bit better on the back here. The screw-down case back here also has an engraving of the water tower that is in Round Rock, Texas. Guy Roebuck, who is the brand owner and the designer of this watch, lives in Round Rock, Texas. Now, this is a dual crown watch. As you see, both crowns are signed. The movement crown is signed with the Roebuck logo, and the bezel crown is signed with a TZ that stands for timing zone. The watch is topped with a flat sapphire crystal that is anti-reflective coated on the underside of the crystal. And I forgot to mention the crowns are not screw-down crowns, and so this whole package is going to be 100 meters water resistant. Now, looking at the dimensions here, we have a width of 42 millimeters, a lug-to-lug length of 49 millimeters, a height of 12 millimeters, and the strap width on this watch is 22 millimeters. Now, of course, once you get past the very cool case, you also have a very cool looking dial to check out here on the Diviso. So, of course, a textured silver pinstripe dial. These pinstripes, as you can see, run the entire length of the case, and then you also have this contrasting matte black stripe that runs down the center of the dial. To me, the dial is very reminiscent of the Hamilton Broadway line. This is a very similar style that you see on that watch as well. Of course, you see these applied steel-framed hour markers that run the length of the watch, the double markers here at 3, 6, and 9, and then a numeral at the 12 o'clock position. Now, the chapter ring that you see here, this is actually an inner rotating bezel, as you probably presumed from the fact that it is a dual crown watch. But this bezel also does double as the minute track for this watch. So, of course, white chapter ring, black markers, and a polished red triangle up there at 12 o'clock. The hands are polished as well, baton-style hands that are filled with BGW9 Superluminova. Of course, you see that red-tipped seconds hand that is running along the watch as well. And not only are the hands filled with BGW9 Superluminova, but the applied markers are on the watch as well. And then if we move outside to this fixed bezel that comes on this watch, it comes with sort of a carbon fiber-esque insert of sorts. The bezel itself is sapphire, and then the insert, of course, down in there. Now, you might see some gold flecks in the bezel as well. This watch that I have here is actually a prototype model. The final production models will not have that. And then, as you guys can also see, the dial is branded with the Roebuck logo and branding below the 12 there. And then, of course, the automatic branding that you see here that is offset on that matte strip. The movement that powers this watch is the Miyota 9039. So this is a true no-date automatic movement. There's no ghost position when you pull out the crown. It beats at 28,800 vibrations per hour, so of course a nice smooth sweep with the seconds hand that you see going around there. The movement is accurate to between -10 to +30 seconds per day, and it does feature hacking and hand winding. The strap that this watch comes on is going to be a black Italian leather strap. It does have a calfskin lining on the back. You do, of course, also see here that it does have the quick change spring bar, so you can pop it off and on pretty easily. And it does have a brushed buckle to match the finish on most of the case that is branded with the Roebuck logo. And then here's what the Roebuck Diviso looks like on my 8-inch wrist. You guys can see, as far as the lug-to-lug distance, there's still a little bit of room to go. So if you, of course, have a smaller wrist than me, which I would imagine that most of you watching this video probably do, it should fit comfortably on your wrist as well. Not too big on the width there, even with the dual crowns poking out of the side of the watch. And if we flip it over too, you see the height is also pretty reined in as well. The benefit of using a flat sapphire crystal, not adding any unnecessary height to this watch. So I've been doing this channel now for almost 2 years at this point, and you guys have seen that I don't think I've reviewed a single dress watch on this channel that I'm aware of. And there's a reason for that. Not only do I not own a dress watch because I don't really have the need to own a true dress watch, but I also don't really dig them that much. They're a little too plain for me. They have far too much polish on them, which I'm more of a brushed finish guy because I tend to abuse my watches a little bit. So again, dress watches, not really my thing. That being said, the Roebuck Diviso here is a fantastic option for somebody that is looking for a dress watch, but still leans very firmly into the sports side of the ledger. You know, I evoked the Hamilton Broadway before. That's one of Hamilton's dress lines. But again, this watch has a few touches that just kind of, again, lean it ever so slightly into that sporty side of the column. Diviso in Italian means split in English. And this watch, I think, certainly lives up to that name, both with the design that the dial has, obviously with that strip running down the center, but also with the elapsed time bezel as well. Typically, an elapsed time bezel is a feature that you're going to see more commonly in sports watches, more specifically dive watches, but it's not something that you often see in pieces that can be dressed up a little bit more. Another example of kind of living up to that name is the fact that the Diviso does have this sharp contrast in finish between, you know, on the case side here, and also differing it between that and the rest of the case. And so if you wear like business dress every day, or maybe like business casual every day, and you're looking for something that would work well as kind of an everyday wear watch for those occasions, I think the Diviso is a great choice for that, because it gives you just a little bit more utility than you normally find in watches that kind of have this aesthetic. If you guys have been watching the channel for a while, you know that I am a huge fan of unique design cases. Again, I mentioned it up front, the case of this watch was the very first thing that caught my eye when I saw the Diviso in person. I love the alluring profile that this watch has, thanks to the very big contrast in finishes that you get on the case side here. Now, moving into the dial, I will say I do kind of wish that the color on the bezel was a little bit closer to what you see on that of the dial. Like, I might have liked to see a silver bezel or a light gray bezel with the black markings on it as opposed to the white. The other thing with the bezel that I'm a little bit miffed about is that this is super easy to turn. And that's not a bad thing per se. I wouldn't mind how loose this bezel turns if the crown were able to lock into place in some way, shape, or form. The fact of the matter is, this bezel is also the minute track for this watch. It's not just a elapsed time bezel. And I did find on occasion when I was wearing it that it would get knocked around a little bit. Obviously not to a huge degree, like it wouldn't go 10 minutes off or anything like that, but just a little nudge here or there that when I, rolled over to check the time, I would sometimes have to fix before I could get a read on the time there as well. Again, it doesn't necessarily have to be a screw down crown. I wouldn't expect that on a watch of this style, but maybe just a little bit of a tighter tolerance for that bezel, just to make it a little bit harder to operate, just so it doesn't get those little nudges that you might get throughout the day. Now, that being said, this dial is a wonderful distraction that you're going to catch yourself admiring quite often throughout the day. You guys can kind of see here, I really like how the light plays with the grooves that run down the texturing of the dial. Very, very cool looking. And if you guys have been with the channel for a while too, you know that I have a huge affinity for dials that use splashes of color in a very restrained manner, and you definitely get that with the Diviso here. Of course, there's little bits of red on the Roebuck logo on the seconds hand, and then that red triangle on the bezel as well. Very nicely done. It gives just the right amount of flare without distracting your eye from where it should be focused on, and of course that is that beautifully textured dial. And really the only miss for me on this dial is this automatic branding that you see here as well. Now, that's about as good as they could have done it with this watch. You wouldn't really want to run that horizontally because I think that would be even more of a distraction if it was running across that entire strip. So, offset, and you don't want to run it down the middle, so offsetting is the right choice. I just don't need it to be there at all, quite frankly. Like, I'd be fine with this watch if it didn't even have that branding. As far as the strap goes, it's fine. I mean, it's of decent quality. It does have the quick change spring bars, which is nice. I do also really like the light gray accent stitching that you see that runs around the entire edge of the strap. I think it complements especially this dial very nicely specifically. That being said, if I own this watch, I would probably replace it with a higher quality leather strap, maybe even one with a more textured grain as well. Might look really cool here on the Diviso. So the Roebuck Diviso is going to be $600. As of recording this video, it's not available quite yet. It's anticipated to be available November 2019. You can get it directly from the Roebuck Watch Company website, which I will link in the description down below. So if you are interested in this watch, definitely keep an eye out for that. All in all, I definitely think the Diviso is an excellent watch. Of course, the aesthetic of the watch is the first thing that caught my eye. It's good to see that it does have the performance to back it up. Again, the Miyota Movement Series is a really reliable, really solid movement series. I'm also super happy that Guy Roebuck decided to go with the 9039, just so you don't have that phantom date position on the crown, which is awesome. And for me, again, like I mentioned, I'm not a dress watch guy. I probably will never be a dress watch guy. So if I was looking for a watch that did need to be a little bit dressier and I didn't want to break the bank, I would definitely be getting something like the Roebuck Diviso. It's very different from most watches that I've seen in the micro brand space. I think Guy has a really great watch on his hands here. So I hope he finds a lot of success with this watch, and I'll be really looking forward to seeing what other designs come out from Roebuck down the line as well, because I think this is an amazing debut from them. So a big thanks to the Roebuck Watch Company for lending in this Diviso prototype into the channel for review. If you guys like this video, hit the thumb button down below. If you loved it, click the red subscribe button and ring the bell icon. Share this with friends on forums and social media that you think would love it as well. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all the next time.